Steelers Nation, welcome back. The Pittsburgh Steelers are always looking for ways to get better, to refine their game, and to push for stronger results week after week. And let me tell you, as we get closer to this monumental Week 4 matchup in Dublin, Ireland against the Minnesota Vikings, we've got some breaking updates that could shape the direction of this season. Before we jump into this exclusive report, I need you guys to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow and keeps Steelers Nation connected. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you never miss a single update about your team. Now, let's dive in, because the news today is both exciting and concerning. We've got an encouraging injury update on star running back Jaylen Warren, but we've also got a defensive shakeup that could change the look of the secondary moving forward. Let's start with the good news. ESPN's Adam Schefter dropped the report Steelers fans were hoping for. Jaylen Warren is expected to play against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, Warren's status was up in the air all week. He had been limited in practice dealing with a knee injury and was officially listed as questionable on the final injury report. But the word now is clear. He'll be suited up in Dublin. Here's the kicker, though. Even though Warren will play, his workload is still a mystery. Will the Steelers try to protect him by limiting his touches? Or will they unleash him, knowing how much this offense depends on him? That's the million-dollar question. Through the first 3 weeks of the season, Warren has been the Steelers' most productive offensive weapon. No question about it. He leads the team in receiving yards with 142 on 11 catches and has a touchdown. He also leads them in rushing yards with 132 and another score on 43 attempts. That's balance. That's leadership. That's a running back doing everything possible to carry an offense that hasn't exactly been explosive. Now let's be real, Warren's efficiency hasn't been stellar. He's averaging just 3.1 yards per carry. But honestly, that's not just a Warren problem. That's a Steelers problem. As a team, Pittsburgh is averaging just 2.8 yards per attempt. That's near the bottom of the league. And if the Steelers are serious about competing this season, that number has to improve. And here's where things get interesting. Minnesota's defense, coached by former Steelers assistant Brian Flores, is tough, one of the best units in football. But they do have a weakness. They've been giving up chunk plays in the run game, allowing 130 yards per game on the ground. So, here's the silver lining. This might actually be the breakout week for the Steelers' running attack. If Warren is healthy enough to play at full speed, this could be his statement game. Not just for himself, but for the offense as a whole. But what if Warren is limited? That's where depth comes into play. Kenneth Gainwell is the most likely candidate to step up. He's already logged 16 carries and 7 catches in his first 3 games as a Steeler. He's reliable, versatile, and could carry more of the load if needed. And then there's the wild card, Trey Sermon. After being elevated from the practice squad for a second straight week, Sermon could see meaningful snaps, especially if Caleb Johnson remains on the outs after his special teams blunder back in Week 2. Bottom line, Jaylen Warren being active is great news. But whether or not the Steelers can really get the ground game going against Minnesota might depend on more than just Warren's knee. It could depend on this entire committee stepping up. Now let's shift gears, because while the Warren update is good, the secondary situation is not so encouraging. Steelers fans, we need to talk about Juan Thornhill. When Pittsburgh signed him in the offseason, the idea was simple. He'd come in, stabilize the back end of the defense, and give the team a reliable free safety presence. Instead, through 3 games, the exact opposite has happened. According to the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Brian Batko, Thornhill has already started to fall out of favor with the coaching staff. The biggest red flag? That Week 2 loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Remember rookie wide receiver Torrey Horton's touchdown? Yeah, Thornhill blew that coverage, and defensive coordinator Terrell Austin was reportedly furious even days after the game. And that's not the only problem. Since joining the Steelers, after being released just 2 years into a 3-year deal with the Cleveland Browns, Thornhill hasn't shown the consistency or discipline Pittsburgh hoped for. He was a gamble, and right now that gamble looks like a bust. So what happens next? Enter Jabril Peppers. Signed as insurance, Peppers stepped up in Week 3 against the New England Patriots and looked comfortable. Was it just the adrenaline of facing his former team? Maybe, but the tape shows a player who fit into the defense, communicated well, and didn't make the glaring mistakes we've seen from Thornhill. If Peppers continues to play well, Thornhill's snaps are going to keep dropping. Simple as that. And for a Steelers secondary already struggling to contain big plays, the coaching staff has no choice but to roll with whoever's playing at a higher level. The bigger picture here is that the Steelers secondary has been a problem all season. Opposing offenses are finding ways to exploit coverage breakdowns and miscommunications, and it's putting a ton of pressure on the pass rush to bail them out. T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith can only do so much. At some point, the safeties and corners have to hold up their end of the bargain. And right now, Juan Thornhill is not doing that. So, let's put this all together. On one side, we've got good news with Jaylen Warren. He's in. And even if he's not 100%, he gives the Steelers' offense a fighting chance. On the other side, we've got a concerning storyline in the secondary, where Thornhill is losing trust and Jabril Peppers may be seizing the opportunity. And all of this is happening in a week where the Steelers are traveling across the Atlantic for a historic game in Dublin, Ireland. Think about the stage. Croke Park, a stadium filled with fans from all over, some making the trip from Pittsburgh, others locals eager to see NFL football live. This isn't just another Week 4 game, it's a showcase. And for the Steelers, it's a chance to prove they can bounce back from early season struggles. If Warren and the run game can establish momentum, Pittsburgh can control the pace and keep Minnesota's offense on the sidelines. But if the secondary continues to break down, Kirk Cousins and that Vikings passing attack could make life very difficult for Mike Tomlin's squad. It's a fascinating mix of storylines. The Steelers' offensive identity is still being shaped. The defense, while elite up front, is still figuring things out on the back end. And now, with Dublin as the backdrop, the stakes feel even higher. The bus still bleeds black and gold, and whenever Jerome Bettis speaks, Steelers Nation listens. Ahead of Pittsburgh's Week 4 showdown with the Minnesota Vikings in Dublin, Bettis joined a fan panel and gave his take on where this team stands. And his words weren't sugar-coated. He said, "The Steelers believe in being physical. That's an area of concern right now. The Steelers haven't been the Steelers of old." Ooh, that one probably stung for Mike Tomlin.
Because if there's one thing Tomlin has always prided himself on, it's physicality and discipline, especially on the defensive side of the ball. That was his calling card when he came to Pittsburgh. That was his promise to Steelers Nation. And right now, it's the very area that's raising doubts. Defense still shaky despite Patriots' win. Yes, Pittsburgh is sitting at 2-1. Yes, they just beat the New England Patriots 21-14. And yes, the defense forced 5 turnovers in that game. But let's be real here. That was against the Patriots offense that hasn't been the same since Tom Brady left. It's not exactly a high-powered unit. So when Tomlin said after the game that the schematics were really good, despite being somewhat limited, it might have sounded more like spin than reality. Because the numbers don't lie. In Week 1, the Steelers gave up 32 points to the Jets. In Week 2, they surrendered 31 to the Seahawks. It was only in Week 3 that they finally looked competent, and even then, they still gave up 3rd and 4th down conversions at an alarming rate. Let's put that in perspective. Against New England, they allowed the Patriots to convert 6 of 13 on 3rd down. They also gave up 4 of 5 on 4th down. That's not Steelers football. That's a defense struggling to get off the field, which directly impacts time of possession, rhythm, and the offense's ability to find balance. And that's exactly what Bettis was talking about when he questioned the team's physical identity. To his credit, Tomlin knows there's a ripple effect happening here. He admitted that the defense's inability to consistently get stops has been hurting the offense, especially the run game. He put it like this: "We're not getting off the field a lot or frequently enough on defense, and I think it's altering the time of possession, and oftentimes that dictates how the game is played in some instances. There's a trickle-down effect of that." Translation: the defense's failures are forcing the offense to play from behind, abandon balance, and put more on Aaron Rodgers' shoulders than anyone wants to admit. But it's not just about time of possession. The truth is, Pittsburgh's rushing attack has been virtually non-existent. Here's the shocking reality. No Steelers running back has rushed for even 50 yards in a single game this season. That's unheard of for a franchise built on ground and pound football. From Franco Harris to Jerome Bettis to Le'Veon Bell, the Steelers' identity has always been tied to running the ball with authority. But in 2025, it feels like the rushing attack has disappeared. There was a small glimmer of hope in Week 3 when Jaylen Warren opened the game with a 33-yard run on the first drive. But after that, nothing. The offense never built on it, and the ground game stalled out yet again. And here's where the news gets worse. Jaylen Warren, the Steelers' most reliable playmaker so far this season, is now on the injured reserve list with a knee injury. That puts his availability for Week 4 against Minnesota in serious doubt. Losing Warren would be a crushing blow, not just because of his rushing ability, but because of how dynamic he's been in the passing game. Without him, the backfield looks thin. Najee Harris is no longer in Pittsburgh, Kenneth Gainwell has shown flashes but hasn't established himself, and Trey Sermon is still trying to find consistency. If Warren can't go, how do the Steelers find balance? How do they keep Rodgers from being forced into 40-plus passing attempts against Brian Flores' aggressive defense? When Jerome Bettis speaks, it's not just about stats, it's about culture. Bettis lived through the physical identity of Steelers football. He was part of the DNA that defined toughness, grit, and smash-mouth style. So when he says this team hasn't looked like the Steelers of old, it's not an empty criticism. It's a challenge. It's a challenge to Tomlin, to the defensive leaders, and to the offensive line to get back to basics. Because right now, the problems run deeper than just one player or one unit. It's communication breakdowns on defense. It's missed tackles. It's failure to convert short yardage situations on offense. It's an identity crisis. And Steelers Nation knows this team can't afford that. Not in a season where Aaron Rodgers came to Pittsburgh with sky-high expectations and the AFC is loaded with competition. So here we are, Steelers Nation. Jaylen Warren is expected to play, which is a huge boost. But the questions remain. How healthy is he really? And can the offensive line give him the lanes he needs to break free? And then on defense, is Jabril Peppers the answer at safety moving forward? Or will Juan Thornhill bounce back and prove he still belongs in this starting lineup? This game against the Vikings could tell us a lot about the Steelers' identity. Are they a team that can overcome adversity, patch holes in the secondary, and grind out wins behind their star running back? Or will the same issues that have haunted them in the first 3 weeks continue to hold them back? I want to hear from you guys. Do you trust Jaylen Warren to carry the load even if he's not 100%? And do you think Jabril Peppers should permanently take over Juan Thornhill's spot in the secondary? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading every one of them. And before you go, don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed this update, and make sure to subscribe so you never miss another Steelers report. We'll be covering every twist and turn all season long, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Here we go, Steelers Nation. Dublin awaits.